Welcome to Inside College Admission, conversations with admission leaders about matters affecting the college going process. My name is Peter Van Buskirk, and I am joined today by Greg Zeiser, who's the Vice President for Enrollment at Elon University. Welcome, Greg.
Thank you, Peter. Glad to be here.
Oh, glad you could join us. I'll bet your days are a little different now than they've been in the past. What can you tell us about what life is like on your campus right now in Elon, North Carolina, and how you and your staff are kind of dealing with current circumstances?
Sure. Well, let's just say that I think we all know that in most cases, college campuses are usually abuzz this time of year. Obviously high school juniors and sophomores and freshmen visiting for the first time, and admitted seniors visiting for perhaps the first time, but more often than not, the second, third, or fourth time to see if this is where they plan to spend their next 4 years. We really look forward to this time of year. It brings a lot of energy, lots of campus events, and as you can imagine, all of those have been canceled out of necessity, out of an abundance of caution for everyone. And even though the university is very much operational, as you can imagine, all classes are being taught remotely, virtually, and all of our operations here in the admissions and financial aid office, as well as other offices across campus, are remote as well. So the entire staff, for the most part, is working remotely at this time. So it's a stark contrast from what we typically expect, want, need, and anticipate every year.
Well, you're right. This is a time of year, it's a celebratory time of year for the students who've been admitted, and you like to see them on campus. You anticipate their enrollment, and then, of course, the fresh faces of the next round of students. And right now, you're looking at an empty campus. Do you get to drive by the campus at all? I mean, or are you strictly staying at home?
Well, I actually am on campus most days. There are a couple of us because although North Carolina is under a stay-at-home situation, we are able to work remotely as necessary as part of a university experience. So even though we can work remotely, a couple of us find it more efficient to work, in the office. So I am on campus. I am looking at about 5 cars in the parking lot, and have seen, and frankly, I'm joining every meeting on campus via Zoom or WebEx. So I'm here, and it's very, very different.
I'll bet. What do you see as the biggest challenges, pandemic-related challenges, that you and your team is faced with at this particular time? And you've got the class of 2024 almost to the finish line, and you just described what campus is usually like this time of year. But how are you dealing with that?
Yeah. Well, obviously, this is essential. This is necessary because of people's welfare, prospective families, admitted families, all the staff and students at the university. So how are we dealing with that? Well, I think, frankly, it's requiring us to be, all of us, whether it's Elon or other schools, to be more thoughtful and creative in ways that I think we will ultimately replicate even when things return to what I am calling a new normal. So, what are the virtual resources that are available? How can you engage faculty in connecting admitted students with them? Just creating a new virtual tour, opportunities for students to attend a virtual admitted student information session. So thinking about the things that we would be doing and creating them in a virtual space, recognizing that they can't, visiting a particular college or university, sometimes you hear students say, "I just knew it when I stepped foot on campus." And you can't possibly replicate it completely, but I think we are doing a good job of identifying ways where we can really engage students and be as helpful and as personal with them as we possibly can be, given the new normal or the temporary normal.
Exactly. I can well imagine that students who've just been admitted or perhaps found themselves on a wait list are finding a lot of excitement or anxiety, depending on the situation, and really want to talk to somebody. How are you finding that your admitted class is responding? Have you been able to connect with them in a pretty good way?
We are, I think so. It started early last week. Well, I mean, we've been obviously engaged from, yield season begins from the moment you release your admissions decisions. And we've been engaging students over the phone via student-to-student phoning and counselor-to-student phoning. But I think that now in this period of uncertainty,
Hmm.
this is typically a stressful time, right, for accepted students. Students are accepted at multiple colleges and universities, and making that right choice is really, really stressful, or it can be stressful. And so what we have found is that the students have really jumped at the opportunity to have a video conference call or video chat with their admissions counselor, or are expressing an interest in, in fact, talking to the cinema and television arts professor because they had hoped to come here and sit in on a class in that particular field because that's what they want to study at Elon. So I find them to be very engaged, and that's exciting.
Well, and it sounds like your team's done a good job of choreographing a whole new show, if you will, in terms of lining up faculty and students and making those connections, which is pretty cool. Now, even before the pandemic, there was an awful lot of speculation about what the admission year might look like, given the Department of Justice involvement with regard to commitments that students were making. In some respects, colleges and universities are flying blind a little bit right now because it's hard to know about the certainty of yields, et cetera. And then, of course, the Department of Justice thing. Is that even on your radar at this point? Or how do you factor that into your thought process?
Sure. Yeah, it's a great question. And it is still on my mind, of course. I will tell you, I'm going to throw something else into the mix. For Elon, we actually joined the Common Application this year too. So we saw a pretty sizable application increase, which is exciting. And frankly, we saw more of an increase than we anticipated. But of course, the more applications you have, the harder it is to predict who really wants to be here.
Sure.
So we have that. Then you have the new NACAC, or relaxed or changed policies and guidelines.
Right.
And now COVID-19. So we have a number of things that we're sort of monitoring, and frankly, it's all uncharted. So I think the best thing you can do is just approach these things in a very measured way, and that's how we approach this increase in applications, recognizing that more applications doesn't necessarily mean they're all going to come. But then also keeping in mind, I think for me, with regard to the Department of Justice and NACAC, is really going into the summer, mindful that summer melt, which we all know is the students who you might lose over the course of a summer, could be greater because of opportunities afforded them from other schools.
Well, and you used the word a few minutes ago, uncertainty. And there's always some degree of uncertainty, but in normal times, you've got the benefit of models, and models built on history that help to project with some greater degree of certainty what might happen. The models for, your Common Application for the first time this year, we've got the Department of Justice stuff, we've got the COVID virus going on. Certainty, where is it? Now, one of the things that I remember from my years in admission is that the wait list was always sort of a hedge against uncertainty. Is this a part of your, and I'm not asking you to reveal strategies or not, but is that something that you anticipate you might find is going to be a more active part of your involvement this year?
I think it certainly could be, given what we know is possible over the course of the summer. I've frankly, as I said, have gone into this thinking, well, you want to leverage. Do you increase the number of offers of admission up front, because I think there's a greater opportunity to enroll a student if they have good news up front, rather than keeping them waiting. So I think it's a function of leveraging the wait list and making sure that you're not completely reliant on the wait list. I think all of us are going to find a very different summer than what we're accustomed to, and therefore complete and utter reliance on the wait list isn't what I have pursued.
Well, right, and uncertainty comes into play in perhaps an even more profound way with regard to cost. And the health crisis is problem enough, but as you well know, now you're going to be faced with a lot of kids who just got acceptance letters, you had some degree of certainty before that mom and dad could afford X number of dollars, and now they're saying, I lost my job, I have no cash flow at all. What in the world is going to happen there? I mean, are you anticipating a deluge? Maybe you're already getting it, of people saying, we need help. How's that going to work for you?
Yeah, it's something that I think all schools are going to encounter. We are encountering it. I'm not going to say it's significant yet, but it's certainly very real. And when we understand that, the challenge is going to be that colleges and universities have limitations as well. So it's a matter of, I think, we're going to encourage families to seriously sit down and talk about what's realistic for them, not just this year, but going forward. Recognize that this is a 4-year investment, and we're going to respond to the degree that we are able. That does not mean that we're going to be able to renegotiate financial aid, but if there's an opportunity for us to reconsider a student for scholarship, we might do that, though those are limited as well. So it's really a matter of sort of asking families to talk seriously with their student about what's realistic over the next 4 years. And that's hard because we're in such an uncertain time. So it's a challenge for families. It's a challenge for institutions, which again sort of exacerbates the concern that I think we all have with regard to what's going to happen over the course of the summer.
Well, exactly, and which takes me back to the Department of Justice piece, which has a lot of folks before COVID speculating on sort of a bidding war or wild wild west situation. And now, if you have families that are coming to you with changed circumstances and pleading for some consideration, and what you're talking about doing makes sense. They may now see that there's an alternative solution, and that is checking with the next school down the road to see if they can match that offer or beat it, etc. And you have very little control over that, I guess.
Right.
Wow. Now, I hate to be sort of looking at this on the doomsday side, but we're hoping and anticipating that schools will open on schedule in the fall.
Hmm.
Is that a firm assumption at Elon, or are you developing contingencies on that assumption right now?
Yeah, that's a reasonable question, and I would say to you at this point, is anything firm at this time? We are planning for fall as we would any fall, but of course we have to monitor what happens between now and the summer months. We're obviously talking about, okay, at what point do we have to be in this position in order to make sure that we can proceed with the fall. But at this point in time, we have every reason to believe that we will open as scheduled in late August, and it will be the traditional Elon experience that students ultimately are looking for and choosing the university for. So are there contingency plans? We're talking about what those things could look like. You'd be foolish not to, but we have every expectation at this time that over the course of the summer, the new reality will be back to a new normal, and that would be very reflective of the Elon that students have chosen.
Well, and I would imagine too that assuming all goes well, that how many employees are there at the institution? 500 or so? 600?
Oh no, we have about 450 faculty or more, and over 1,000 staff. So 1,500. We're 7,000 students. So
putting 1,500 people, staff and faculty, back on campus, getting them to dust off their desks and that sort of a thing. Just the startup is going to be a big deal.
Absolutely, which is why you have to think about, okay, at what point do we have to make certain decisions? I'll share something else. I mean, obviously Elon has a very, very strong reputation for study abroad.
Yes.
And obviously study abroad this spring has been impacted significantly. And we're monitoring what that looks like for the fall. We have a large number of students who are planning to study abroad in the fall. And at this point in time, it's just sort of a monitoring that to make sure, obviously, the most important thing is the safety and well-being of our students, and looking at that. So I think that's foremost on our minds, in addition to just monitoring how we roll into the fall semester. But at this point in time, we feel as confident as we can that we're going to be returning to the traditional environment.
Now, if you're uncomfortable with this question, tell me so, but I'm just wondering if there's any speculation on when you might be opening your campus. to visitors to staff?
Yeah, no, that's a really good question. Well, the governor in North Carolina has declared stay at home through April 30th.
Mhm.
So at this point in time, we expect, hope, anticipate that we will be returning from remote work 1st of May.
Wow. Let's keep our fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed, exactly.
Now, I want to kind of shift the focus here. We talked a little bit about how you're managing the enrollment of the class that's just been admitted, and you have no doubt probably tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, of kids in the pipeline for the next class. Um, Tell me how you going to do that, because I mean, right now there aren't any spring college fairs, open houses in the spring, all the things you'd normally do to bring these people in, show them around, treat them well, etc. That can't happen, and you're hoping that you'll be back on campus by May 1, and if so, you're not likely to roll anything out until a little bit later. But what are your contingencies there? I mean, I suspect
Sure.
it's a creative opportunity for your staff.
Yeah, it really is. It's funny you asked that too, because we're going to be talking about that later this week about, what are some ways we can encourage those visits that were scheduled for the spring to occur over the course of the summer. In fact, when we had to cancel our visits, and we had thousands of students scheduled to visit in the months of March, April, and then into early May, um, most of the families said, we understand, we will plan to visit in the summer. So we hope that we will be fully functioning and be able to welcome visitors over the course of the summer, probably the latter part of the summer. Um, but we will also be looking at perhaps adding an open house program in the latter part of the summer. We typically don't do open house programming in the summer just because the campus is relatively quiet, but relative is is the key word there. So, I think that's our anticipation for. I think the cycle will be later this year. Obviously, the cycle will be later this year. I do believe, though, that we're going to look at opportunities to really encourage students to visit campus. Perhaps by offering um, you know uh, reduced rates at some of the local accommodations. We have an inn on campus, and perhaps we can encourage people to stay there. So that's the point is well made, though, because the class of 2021, or the class that enters in 21, which is the graduating class of 2025, is going to be perhaps even more complex to enroll than the class that begins in the fall of 20. This has implications for 21 and 22. We all know what's happening with SAT dates, and we are not a test optional school at this time. Um, and if students don't have opportunity to access a standardized test, what does that mean? So
Right.
these are all the things that we're talking about and thinking about, and developing some framework around.
Which kind of anticipates the next question, because you got into testing and test option, and the test option's been sort of a rage over the last 20 years now. It's grown, but does this really kind of force you to rethink the whole paradigm a little bit?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think it could. I was in contact with a colleague today. Who I won't name, but they just made the decision to go test optional. And my question was, is this something that you had been discussing, or is this just a result of what's happening now? And as you would expect, it was a conversation we've been having, and this just put us over the edge. And I totally understand that and respect that, and frankly had that conversation with some of my senior staff colleagues, including the president, earlier today, just about we're going to have to be thinking about that. We have no plans to do that at this time, but at the same time, it may result in a situation where the decision is made for us. Time will tell.
Well,
And we're communicating. I'm sorry, Peter. We're communicating with students who are asking those good questions. I love the fact that students are thinking about that, and obviously, knowing when standardized test dates are still scheduled, we can encourage them to look at those. It's if those get canceled, then we'll have to really revisit this entire thing.
so if you had a 17-year-old rising senior in your house, maybe you do, I don't know, but and that young person is expressing some real stress about this process, and I was going to take the May SAT and it's been canceled, and I need to get my score up. what advice would you give that person?
Sure. Well, I had this very question from a student in a Facebook Live session I did last week, and I was delighted by the question. It was a student who said, if I want to apply early, but I can't take an SAT, what are my options? And I said, well, we will obviously work with you. But the reality is that there are tests that are offered in October and November, and we believe we can even work with a November test date given our release schedule. So, at this point, if additional testing dates are canceled, hopefully they won't be canceled latter part of the summer or fall. But we're monitoring the situation and are going to be very communicative with students, because we know that adds just another layer of stress to this already very stressful process. And we want to be as helpful as possible, and we will always be as transparent as we are to help students.
And this may be a difficult one to answer as well, but do you anticipate, or maybe you're finding already, conversation among counterparts at other schools looking at some sort of consortial approaches to recruitment activities, requirements, etc.?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I haven't heard that yet. However, I will say that one of the other things that we're looking at that I failed to mention when you asked the question about enrolling the students who are juniors now, I would imagine that virtual college fairs are more popular than they've ever been. And naturally, we are going to be involved in registering for some. We are registered for some virtual college fairs to help reach juniors and sophomores.
Great.
I also note that some of those opportunities require schools to get together and do a presentation as part of that virtual experience on a particular topic. So you're starting to see that. I also am aware of some counselors who, in place of their college fairs that they typically are holding, are offering colleges and universities the opportunity to do a virtual experience there. So I think we're starting to see that, but I have not heard a lot from other schools just yet.
Very good. Well, this is really helpful insight. But you're actually a lifer at Elon, aren't you?
I am. This is year 30 for me.
Oh my, and that starts with your student years, right?
No, those are 4 more.
Oh, 4 more. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Well, you've traveled a good road with your alma mater, and I'm sure that they're delighted to have you in a position of leadership right now. Is there anything else that, as we wrap things up, is there anything else that you'd like to add for the good of the order, advice to students and parents as they are either making final decisions or about ready to start on the whole search process?
Sure. Yeah, I would say for the students who are trying to make decisions, one of the things I have found really helpful is, we've developed a really, really robust website that will officially launch tomorrow, but it exists now. It's called Life as a Phoenix. One of the things that I'm enjoying is, as we do Facebook Live sessions and as we do different things, when I hear from families who are saying, this was really helpful, but could you do something about this? Or what about this? That's really valuable. I have been responding to each of those inquiries to say, good idea. We'll try to put something like that in place. So I guess my best advice, frankly, to admitted students, but also to juniors and sophomores, is don't be afraid to ask. This is new for all of us. And although we are thinking night and day about how we can, address things that we believe you might be interested in, don't be afraid to email us or call us and ask. We want to be as responsive as we can. And frankly, we're not going to think of it all. And everybody has different interests and specific things they want to know more about. And don't be afraid to ask, because that will only help us be better at what we do for you.
The website sounds fascinating. Is there a URL that you would want to share with folks viewing this?
Sure. It's elon.edu/life-as-a-Phoenix.
Wonderful.
Yep.
And this will take them into the new world of. Now, is the Phoenix your mascot?
Yes, we are. The Phoenix is our mascot. So yeah, we're trying to give. So right there, there's video tours. There's videos, student-led videos of our residential neighborhoods. There's an opportunity to sign up for virtual information sessions for seniors. for conversations with our admissions counseling staff. There will be also opportunities to sign up to talk with faculty and that sort of thing. So it's pretty comprehensive, and we're excited about launching it tomorrow.
Good for you. Congratulations on your accomplishments and your continued leadership at Elon. I'm sure that the students who are enrolling at Elon and looking at Elon will benefit greatly from the work that you're doing.
Thank you.
I want to thank you again, Greg, for joining us, and I hope that folks who have an opportunity to view this webinar will take advantage of further opportunities to explore life as a Phoenix and check out the Elon website. That's it for now. Again, Peter Van Buskirk wrapping things up for the webinar series at Scoir Inside College Admission. Best wishes to all for a happy and healthy day. Take care.
Thank you.